All right. So hello and welcome to episode 42. Can you believe it? 42 of our Conversation to Connect. Let's Get Real Talk, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. And at Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative solutions to boost your business. Each month, we nominate a different member of our community to have a meaningful conversation with. So be sure to make yourself comfortable with a cup of tea or a beverage of your choice. Take notes, and of course, be sure to add comments to the chat box to engage with us during our conversation. And so around the 45-minute mark, I'll be unmuting the lines and invite our listeners to ask questions, share your ahas, your epiphanies, and enter into our thought-provoking conversation. The inspiration of our bi-weekly Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real Talks, is to create purposeful conversations. And we really desire to be relevant during these challenging and uncertain times. And of course, to support our community to make an impact in the world and stay connected. So as we gather together here, and I just invite you to set aside any distractions and invest your attention to the conversation that's about to unfold. And just look for just one idea, one thing that you can put into action so that you don't cheat yourself out of the time you've invested here. So our Conversation to Connect this week is with Dani McDonough from Seattle, Washington. Welcome, Dani.
Thank you so much for having me, Cyndi.
It's such an honor. You're such a joy to know, and I know our listeners are in for a treat. So before we dive into this intriguing conversation, I want to take a moment to introduce Dani to our listeners. So Dani McDonough stays busy saving the world one home loan at a time. I love that. Whether you are buying your first home or refinancing your home, she helps guide you through the process with grace and ease, along with a huge helping of tenacity. Something that's very much needed in those fields, right? To get those things right. So in addition to her superhero day job, she also supports and highlights professionals through her gift of photography. She loves to help people put their best face forward to attract their ideal clients. And she's most proud of her family, which includes her husband, Andy, and her two gorgeous teens, Jackson and Lauren. So they're also super in love with their two pups, Charlie and Milo, who are nearby. She likes to say, can you say pandemic puppies? So growing up in the South, Dani knew her life would take her away from challenges from her youth. So following the trail of breadcrumbs, Dani managed to find her way to fully embrace who she is. And she's a self-described true Gemini, and she balances both dualities in her life to fully show up in the world. So thank you so much for joining us, Dani. This is really an honor to have you and be able to have you share with our listeners. So as we get going here, give us a little bit more background about your journey.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Cyndi. You're so gracious. I really appreciate it. And to answer your question, so I guess I think about my early beginnings. I grew up in Southern Kentucky in a small country town, and I was a transplant. I had been brought there at 8 years old, and I had a time I was in, prior to moving there to Kentucky with my father, I lived in Texas for a time, for a few years, where my parents split up and there was a lot of turmoil and instability. There was a period of time where I was in a children's home in El Paso, Texas. And so there I was with my half sister, and my dad and my stepmom came to get me out of that children's home and brought me to Kentucky. And so then I was transplanted to that area where, I was where multiple generations of people had always been together and grew up together. And I certainly knew that that wasn't the place for me long-term, but I needed to get through that time. And I knew that I was going to be moving at some point and I was going to go find my way in the world. And so I grew up had my high school years there in Kentucky. And then after I graduated from high school and I did some college, I moved to Tacoma and spent a little time with my mom. And that's what brought me to the Pacific Northwest. And those were those early years. And how I ended up getting in the mortgage business was, what was fascinating to me is I had moved in to spend some time with my mom, and I had already lived on my own with my best friend after high school. And, she started momming me and telling me what to do. And I realized, okay, this is not gonna really work out for me. So nice to reconnect. But I went to the University of Puget Sound and I pulled off one of those numbers for like rooms to rent. And I went to a house in Tacoma there on 5th Street and met a wonderful woman and decided to move in with her. And she had a house with a room to rent. And that first night I was bringing in my bags and moving my stuff in, and there was a really nice gal sitting there on the couch at her mom's place and saying that, Mom, I'm going to go to Seattle tonight and I'm going to go to see some, live music. And I said, oh, well, can I join you? And she's like, well, okay, sure. And so this is Dina I'm referencing. And Dina ended up paying a headhunter back in the day to find her a job, a professional job. And she was hired to work at a finance company. And so then I would go to work with her in the morning because I didn't have a car. And I would help her pull credit reports and do things like that and help clients in the morning before I went to my full-time job. And literally from that introduction, that's why I call it a trail of breadcrumbs, because it was this interesting path that is how I started my whole mortgage career. Because when I had that first opportunity to get started, then I was temporary part-time to temporary permanent, from part-time, permanent to full-time, and then really just launched my whole career from this introduction from a friend. That was a long answer.
No, it's beautiful. I'm always love hearing about people's journey because it so forms who they are, where we've been, what we've been through. Nothing's wasted. I just really believe that. I believe every experience that we have makes us who we are today. And I just really appreciate you being willing and transparent enough to share, the hard parts of your life, as well as the beautiful things that you've experienced along the way. So, you're sharing with us about your early beginnings, and one thing we want to talk about today is embracing your whole self, right? That's something that you shared was near and dear to yourself. So, what are ways that we can embrace our whole self on this crazy journey of ours called life?
Well, what comes to mind for me on that topic is when I got into the finance and mortgage industry, I got very, very focused on my career and really focused on, paying off debt, getting security for myself, providing, and finding a professional job that I could flourish in and I could grow in. And then that caused me to be so imbalanced. I wasn't really tending to myself or my heart and my creativity. It was very focused so much on one half of my brain and one half of my personality and interest. And then I finally, after enough time, probably after I had kids and I found myself home more, whether somebody be sick or needing to be here more, I then delved into, okay, well, what can I be doing to fill up myself and my soul? And what can I do to nourish myself that isn't going to distract or take away from my home life and things? And I was finally inspired to pick up my camera that I always had with me since high school and decide to use it. And I started working in photography. And I figured that's something I can do and I have a passion for and a talent. And I really started delving into that part. And then I felt like, okay, good, I'm tending to this other side of me. And so between my photography interests that I have, and I love supporting entrepreneurs and professionals with getting beautiful images of them that they can use for social media and marketing and all of that. And then I also play with with different painting processes and creative things, whether it be taking a photo, pouring resin and making some art from that, or pouring out acrylic paint and just making a mess and having fun with that. I think the pivotal moment for me, especially when it comes to the art side, is that I thought, okay, I'm going to go play with paint. I'm going to go make some stuff. And then I was, trying to make things look like something. And I thought, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm really bad at this. And then I had this epiphany that, oh, I don't have to actually make it look like anything. I can just play with this and pour it out and see what happens. And I remember a moment when I was working on a painting for my best friend, and I was trying to make this mountain range so cool and really trying to make it look like I imagined in my mind. And, it's just really, I wasn't quite hitting the mark. And then I was really kind of losing the fun of it. And I realized the moment that I just need to let this go. And it was so freeing when I just poured over the whole thing and just started fresh. And I got such a great lesson out of that. And that's one of my favorite pieces I have today. It's in my home. And it always reminds me just to kind of lighten up and to let go. So to answer your question, I feel like whether it be drawing or painting or photography, even these days, a cell phone is as good as anything. And you can just get out there and play. And I think just sit with yourself and see what sounds good to you. And you can watch process videos on Instagram or YouTube and get the foundation down if you want to have a roadmap with that, or otherwise just play and just allow yourself to make wonderful mistakes and enjoy that process too.
Well, Dani, I love your reminder at the beginning when you just was sharing how there's different seasons in your life. There's seasons when you're focusing on your career and you have certain goals. And then of course we have our children, and that changes everything because they're our priority, and taking care of them and raising them. And then also not to neglect yourself, right? To be able to have those creative outlets. And I'm imagining that one piece of art that you have hanging, yes, you like looking at it, and I'm sure it's beautiful, but like you say, it's the story. It reminds you of that capsule in time where you created a paradigm shift and you saw things differently. You didn't have to be perfect, right? You can have fun. So I love that. And we all need to be playful. And some of us have a harder time doing that, depending on our personalities, but thank you for that. That's a great reminder to all of us. Because it's really not an all or nothing proposition, right? We can play, we can express all different facets of ourselves.
I will often host a group of friends and host an art night. And invariably there's someone that will be there that will say, I can't do that. I don't know. I'm not good at art. I can't do that. And I'm like, perfect. That's awesome. You don't have to. And if you want to, pour the paint down on there and spread it out, and and I'll tell you what we're going to do, then you can join in. And they do. And I think half of why I actually am willing to share that I'm playing with creative processes is how it allows other people to do the same, because I hear their words, they echo in me, and it's fun to just do it anyway.
Yeah. I think that's what's so beautiful about the conversation we're having today. And I hope that our listeners are enjoying this as well, because it is a journey. We're all on our own journey, but we can share pieces of our journey with each other and encourage one another. And so that takes us to kind of the next thing I really love to have you talk about is, more about what you've learned, Dani, about the importance of carving out time and space to really express the different parts of our lives.
What first comes to mind answering that question was really, this is going to sound a little callous, but caring less what people think. That's really the nuts and bolts of it. And, I am grateful to be married. I really am. I love my husband. And there was a time where I was a little too concerned for his approval or what people thought of what I was doing. And I just felt so hungry to just explore and to break out of what I should be doing all the time, because literally this laundry will not quit. The kids will be out in a very short time, but I just recognized there was never me catching up with my chores or my to-dos. There was not going to be this expansive space of time that I was going to be able to play. And Lord knows I'm 50 years old. There's not like forever that I get to just wait and count on tomorrow. So then maybe I will make a fool of myself. And maybe I will make a bad piece of art and I'm going to put it on Instagram and I'm going to share it because I just don't actually need anyone to love it. But I'm going to need me to know I tried and me to know I played. That's good for me. I'm delighted with that. And so I just give us all, myself, a reminder that this is not all about my 9 to 5. This is not all about I'm not trying to be a perfect mother. I'm not trying to get everyone's approval or anyone's permission.
Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
this is a beautiful world we're in. This is a beautiful opportunity we have. There are a long list of challenges. And if I stay focused on those, it's going to bring me down. I have got to just reach for something that's going to give me some energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I want that for myself. I want those for those that I love. And if how else will I do it if I just don't do it myself? That's what I'm going to need to do. And I want to.
Yes, and I'm just reading. TU just joined us, and thanks for joining us, TU. She says, "I love this, Dani. Not seeking approval from others." As you were sharing that, Dani, I saw everyone that's joining us today shaking their heads. And so it resonates with all of us within us. We've all had to learn that journey on our own, right? Different times of our life. Maybe we've held on to it longer than others, but to be able to be, what do they say? Confident in your own skin is a big thing. It's worth a lot. It's worth the journey just to be able to, listen to your gut, be confident in who you are, not need to please others, wanting to do the right thing. And I hear you doing that, saying that you want to build your business. You want to be a contribution to others in your mortgage and photography business and bring out the best in others and be responsible and all of that. But, to be able to have that just confidence in who you are is beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. And you do that through your life and through your art and just your sharing today as well.
I feel like I've learned so much with not just playing it so safe or doing what I've always done. And I've challenged myself and I've gained such respect for the process. I honestly would have been in a coffee shop, say in Queen Anne or Magnolia, and I'll think, oh, look at that art up on the wall. Isn't that interesting? I could do that. That's I could do that. And I just somehow had this idea of how easy it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, well, hey, I'll just do it. Could I put some art up in here? I'll do it. And then I learned a lot. Creating the pieces, finishing the pieces, cleaning them up, having hanging gear, naming them, pricing them, if I was even doing that, transporting them, hanging them, not damaging them, making a lot of mistakes, not selling any. Then I go to a coffee shop and I'm like, wow, they really, oh man, they did it. They did all those steps. I am so humble and I have such an appreciation and I'm so grateful for those learnings. Truly, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I learned.
Dani, I'm just touched by seeing the world through your eyes just in the last few minutes, that you could look at a wall with artwork and you can encourage yourself and say, I can do that. And then you can back it up by, going through all the processes and then have such respect and reverence for what that person did. So it's a wonderful duality. And I just love the perspective of honoring ourselves by saying, I can do that. And then also respecting the journey that others have gone through to get to the same place. So that's a really beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So what's next for you, Dani? Share with our listeners ways that you envision showing up in the world and how you can, you've been doing this all along the way, but just kind of how you can encourage us all to do the same.
What's next for me is that, where I had my first 25 years in lending, and then I took a break from lending and I stayed home, and I was helping with group parenting for both the kids at school and volunteering. And then I opened up my photography business. But really going forward, it's marrying both of them. I recognize that there was a time where I was on a break from lending and I was looking at doing a refinance. I called up maybe an internet lender. I thought, okay, I'm going to see how the competition's really about. I'm going to make this great deal happen, and I'm going to see what the other side is like. And then I went down the process, and along the way, I realized that that was an icky process. I found someone, and I got to the process where they offered advice that I thought was unintelligent, inappropriate, and I said, well, you must not own real estate. Is this really the advice you're giving me for my hundreds of thousands of dollars of a loan? Is that really your advice? And the person said, oh no, I just thought I'd mention it. And literally in that moment, I knew, okay, I'm not done in lending. I'll be back. And 2 years before COVID hit, no, excuse me, 6 months before COVID hit, I got my mortgage license back again, and I returned to the lending space. And it was perfectly divine timing. I was able to refamiliarize myself with all the changes over the years that I was away. And now I was able to work from home with the dogs and the kids and the husband, and we were all here safe together. And I'm really grateful. Certainly during that time, there would have been no photography work to be had. And so I really feel like my whole person has come home. I accept that I love lending, and I'm going to be regrowing that business again for my next 50 years. And I continue to serve people through photography, and I love it. I love it because I feel like now I have the best of both worlds. I have my profession that I'm proud of, that I'm re-engaged in, and then I have my creative outlet that I don't have to force to be my full-time job. And so that feels really good to me. And so then I'll be looking to grow with my business partners, people that will help connect me to people that are looking to buy homes, refinance, do maybe home improvements. And the thing that's really great about where I'm working is we have the typical FHA, VA, your standard conventional and jumbo loans, but we also have things that are out of the box for the self-employed borrower, or we can use bank statements for income versus tax returns. And so I'll just be getting the word out on how I serve families, how I navigate them through the lending process and take their shoulders from here to here and get that handled for them in a professional way, as well as just tending to myself and all my parts, and making sure that I'm not playing too small or hiding out, and I'm getting out and serving others. That's what it's about for me.
Yeah, well, being an advocate for others, because I think what I heard you say is in having that conversation with the other lender and realizing, and you and I had talked about this in getting ready for this conversation, how you felt like, where's the customer service? I'm not getting, I know how to meet the needs of people, and, I can do this. And so you're really coming full circle, right? You came back to your roots, but it sounds like to me, just in this conversation and in us talking about it ahead of time, you're a different person than you were when you first started, in many ways as well, right? You've learned a lot.
I've learned so much, and how I was so fortunate at such a young age to find myself into this career. And probably I didn't actually have to leave the business during that time, but I was so burnt out after so long. But it was more about my not tending to what I really needed for me. And I blamed it on my job. I blamed it on that. Like, I'm so bored of this. I'm ready for a change. I want to just be creative. Well, that's very romantic. And they can both be true. They can both be present. You can have a fantastic, stable career and serve your heart and your soul in what you want to do in the world. And so that's important to me.
Right. There's so many times in my life that I felt like I'm coming full circle, just like you've explained. But I'm coming back, hopefully a wiser, wiser person than I was. But sometimes you do need a different perspective. Sometimes we do need to step away from things to really appreciate them and value the journey.
Yeah. And, something just flushed in my mind that I feel compelled to share. And it's I just like when we were talking about coming home, coming home to ourselves, and the fact that I work in the lending industry, which is helping people come home, and how important real estate has been in my life, offering me stability from such unstable, young start in my life, and how so nice to facilitate stability in that home for families and for my own, and that's important.
Well, I remember you mentioning to me that you really cherish your being able to drive your daughter around now, because she's not quite getting her driver's license yet. And you're just like, these last couple of years, like, I'll take you anywhere. And I love that, because there's times, I remember I raised 3 kids, I had 3 teenagers. There's times it's like, oh, will this ever end? Or, potty training, or all the different stages that we go through with our kids, right? Yeah, I know Jenny's holding up something. So she's got a little one with her there.
Which is beautiful to see, by the way.
But yeah, it's, so we all go through times where it's like, oh, I just can't wait till this is over with. I just want to have some more time to myself. But then there's these epiphanies that we have, whether it's in our career, with our children, with our families, where we really realize how fleeting time is and how we need to savor the moment. And so I love that about this conversation. And, the full kind of picture of it that you were sharing with me is embracing, accepting, honoring, celebrating, right? Our whole selves, all of that. It's just like taking the whole thing and just, warts and all, understanding and forgiving ourselves, giving ourselves grace.
Absolutely. Well said, Cyndi.
So, Dani, in this journey of yours called life, you've shared with us some of the hard things you've been through, about your career. We didn't talk a lot about photography. So before we end this, I want to make sure we give that, piece of you, because that's an artistic piece, right? We give you an opportunity to share about your joy of capturing people in photography, and especially kind of talk about, I'm noticing the 2 occupations that you have. One is mortgage, which is detail oriented, focused. You have to really be attentive to, the whole process of taking people through their loans. And then the creative side. So you've got the right and left sides of your brain working. Share with us a little bit about photography, and then a little bit about that kind of dance or duality with the careers that you're embracing.
It seems that typically I'm attracting the professional, the entrepreneur, who either has a transition that's happening. Maybe they're looking for that next career opportunity, or maybe an author is putting out a book, or a solopreneur is looking to work on their social media images, but they're wanting something slightly more elevated than a casual cell phone photo where they're beside somebody else. They're really wanting to put in the proper time to show up in their best way. And so I'll have clients meet me here in my studio. We'll do hair and makeup, a few changes of clothes, and a number of different backdrops and backgrounds. This is a very, very, very good one that looks great for a lot of people. And they're really wanting to have an arsenal of images they can use for social media for the next year or so. That's a lot of what I attract. And then in addition, I'll go to maybe a small to mid-sized company and help a company get their whole staff photos done and get a group of people through really quick. And they want to have that consistent backgrounds and images for their people to use in their signatures and their website. And those are the 2 main things that I'm usually doing, but it's usually professional photography like that. People that are looking to really look their best, but also authentic. And, their personality is really coming through. It's not just so stiff. and slightly elevated.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about the, there's those are two things that you're juggling, if you will, in your life, right? Your desire to capture people in photography and also help them with as a loan officer. So is that hard to juggle? Is it complete you? Is it fun? How does that work?
It is a journey, is a short answer. The other answer is I'm a work in progress for sure, but I'm really careful to be separate. For my Facebook, I am not on my personal page talking about all my things that I'm interested in. If you're interested in my photography, there's my photography page. If you're interested in my me and my personality, my dogs and my life and the sunsets and everything that I'm into, you'll find that there. If you happen to want to see my paintings, I have a channel for that. And so I just try to be really clean in my communication and not spam everybody about whatever interest that I'm in. And so I have great flexibility in my profession as a mortgage loan officer. And so then I can work from home a day that I have a client, and I'm not trying to be everyone's photographer. So I'm not trying to get overbooked there. And so it hasn't been a challenge for me. Typically my clients might want to do maybe a Friday and and meet me and do their photos. And so that's more towards the end of the week. And I will focus on my day job of helping people with home loans, maybe the Monday through Thursday. But somebody needs something on Saturday or Sunday because they're going to buy a house and they need a letter. So I don't define myself by my certain hours. And I just take the amount of work that feels good to me and people that I really want to support. So I'm not trying to be everyone's photographer. I prioritize my family, my work. And then as I have the space and interest, I'll do workshops to help people through the art process. I will do maybe headshot special days where I have a few people through, and I just take it as I can fit it in. And I'm not trying to be everybody's everything.
Right. Well, that's a beautiful reminder. So thank you for that, because, there's many of us that have more than one part of ourselves that we share with the world. But I think that's a really good reminder. We do have to be careful not to diffuse them too much. I think it's good to have different parts of ourselves that we share with people. In a conversation like this, it's great to be able to know how diverse your interests are and the beautiful range that you have of creativity and being able to be of service to people in mortgage. But I think it is wise in business to be able to, share things in a way that is, I'm kind of struggling with not using the word compartmentalize, but I guess that's essentially what it is, right? To be able to share things on a need to know basis in some cases, and then also to be able to be true to ourselves. So there's still that balance.
I want to express myself. I want to show up. And it's more about, I'm going to challenge myself. Can I do this? Can I feel comfortable? Can I do it and not get the praise? That's great. Can I do it anyway? Yes. And I want, and I can't imagine everybody needs a mortgage every day. And not everyone's going to be interested in hearing about what's happening in the mortgage market all the time, but they might be really into photography. And so here's what I notice. Somebody's going to shoot me a messenger on Facebook. I haven't talked to this person in 5 years. And now they're going to hardcore hit me for what they're selling me. That doesn't feel good to me. And it doesn't feel true or authentic. And so I will not do that to others. And so I figure, here are my channels. Here are my offerings. You are welcome to engage with me as little or not. And that's great. But I give them I feel it's best for me that I give someone the option. Yeah. This is, and no, I do not have. And I felt challenged because on my, Facebook, I know a lot of people in the world, but maybe on my mortgage page, it might just be a few hundred people. And my audience is kind of small. I'm not winning the algorithms, so, but I still feel, I feel compelled to keep it clean. Right.
Well, you just put a beautiful bow around our conversation, and really the operative word here is authentic. And so in order to embrace, accept, and honor and celebrate, of course, our whole self, we need to be our authentic self. right? We need to show up as who we really are, and not put a facade on it. So I love that, Dani. That's so beautiful. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us. And so I just want to ask if you have any parting thoughts before we open the call for any Q&A from the listeners, because this is a great time. We'll open it up just a moment or so for you to ask questions, share your ahas, epiphanies, or enter into this conversation with Dani and I. So any parting thoughts you want to leave our listeners with before we open it up?
First, Cyndi, I really want to thank you for this invitation to be here with you. You are very generous. You're so heart forward. I really love the way that you lead in a really beautiful way. You've been generous with me. You've been patient and you've been kind, and you have this platform and you chose to shine the light on me. And I really see you, and I thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That's the first thing. And then I will say too, for those that are out there networking in the world or communicating with others, and you hear someone have an interest in maybe selling their home, buying a home, they're scared. People don't often go, Dani, I can't wait to give you my paperwork and go through the loan process. Woo! They're usually a little reluctant. They kind of might want to put it off, and maybe they're nervous or apprehensive. And I just want to say that I would love an introduction to help someone, no cost or obligation, but just have a conversation. I can guide someone in the right direction when it comes to the home loan front. And when it comes to photography, if you know someone that's they're ready for their glow up, they're ready to show up, I'd love an introduction to support them as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm looking forward to having you over to my garden and have you take pictures of me whirl around with the ladybugs and the bumblebees and capture me in my garden. So I'm really looking forward to that day. So let's go ahead and feel free and unmute yourself, raise your hand. This is a great opportunity to be able to just share with each other, our journeys. And if there's anything that that Dani or myself has shared that kind of spurs, something you want to share, feel free. So Lynn, I see you've unmuted yourself. Hello.
Hello. No pressure, Lynn.
Well, I have the privilege of knowing Dani. And so one thing I know for sure is that she has trained herself to be positive and not dwell on negative things that happen in everyday life. She steps through it. And I'm sure sometimes she's just continuing to train herself, but is really down, but continues to step through it and stay positive and move on to the next thing. She does not dwell. She does not. And I can also attest to all of the things that she does because I've participated in them, especially the mortgage. I mean, I put it off for the longest time because I feel like when I'm doing something like that, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, or like something's wrong with me or my numbers or whatever. So you really need somebody who is relaxed and is like, we got you, period. And it went so fast. I mean, it might be the fastest in the history of time, how fast I got approved and how fast my house closed just like a few months ago. So it was kind of like, why didn't I do that a long time ago, kind of thing. So I can definitely say it made a big difference for me. Let's see.
Well, having a professional on your court goes a long way, right? I mean, somebody who really knows their industry.
It does. And I know that she knows how much anxiety I had about it. But again, she didn't really address it. She just kind of kept it moving, She just keeps it pushing. So I really appreciated that. And it was the right thing for me to do, and it all worked out. But yeah, I've always admired the I can do that thing, or let's go, let's do this. I mean, she just has, I want to learn how to train myself to be positive. And it's kind of interesting. This is corny, but I saw Robin Roberts talking about the same thing just a few days ago, how she's been through these illnesses and she has learned to train herself to keep herself going by being positive, training her own mind. So I want to work on that.
I think it's so important that, thank you for sharing, Lynn, and for sharing some background with Dani to just underline what amazing
There's more, but I'll leave it at
woman
that.
she is. And
She
but I
took my
think it's really,
photos too.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You look amazing, Lynn.
And I have to say, my own self, the photos that she took of me I'm proud to publish them. So that's another thing I was very insecure about. But anyway,
Nice.
I digress. I'll leave it at that.
That's beautiful.
No, thank you for adding it.
Well, I think it's really important for us to talk about how we all have insecurities. We all have things that go through our head. We like, Dani, you mentioned, desire to please other people, but at what expense, right? To ourselves, to our integrity, to who we are, to our confidence. But I think these conversations are so important because we encourage one another. And, ultimately, people like you, Dani, who I see as just the shining star of positivity, you've gone through really hard times in your life, and you've doubted yourself, and you've, we all have moments where, we wish things were different. But in the end, it's how we show up in the world, right? It's how we, in the end, resolve all that conflict that we have within ourselves that we're dealing with, whether it's family or health or friends or just the state of the world, but still continue to choose positivity and choose to smile and choose to be a contribution to others. I think that's just beautiful.
Huge.
Cyndi, I want to say that this is the reason I accepted your invitation, was because I understand through a number of conversations, and how social media can be, that you're only putting the pretty stuff out there, and this is a really good hair day for me, and I made an effort, and I got my pretty shirt on, and I'm feeling really good. But then there's the off-camera days, and I'm feeling down, and my hair is really funky, and I didn't make any effort, and I feel kind of poopy. But I had put a post on social about praising my stepmom and how she was there for me, and she filled in for me, and she really stood up for me in a way that I didn't understand in my youth. This is an adult now looking back, and I'm like, wow, she is all that. And to me, she's really a living saint for what she does for our family, what she's doing for my dad, who's deep in Alzheimer's, and how selfless she is and how convicted she is. My point is, I made a post about Cora and thanking her. And this woman, Lynn, who's an artist here in Magnolia, came up to me in the village and said, Dani, I had no idea. I just had no idea. I see your beautiful family on Facebook and everything's so pretty. I've always looked at you and thought everything is just really perfect for you. And I don't go sit around talking about my woes, and I can't go, oh my gosh, though, you guys, I do have a lot of social media posts in my mind and I think about them and I'm like, I want to share this. Okay, that's not the platform. Okay, this is not the place for it. And I stop myself. And then I know that in my wish to be authentic and be in service in the world, well, then I need to be also authentic. And this is why I chose to accept your invitation, Cyndi, because I don't talk about this. I don't often get an opportunity. It's not really light cocktail party conversation. Mm-hmm. And this is an opportunity to share some of that. And that's why I accepted. And I thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. This is Conversation to Connect. Let's get real. And real isn't always pretty, but real is what's there. It's our authentic selves. And, my mom used to say, like, warts and all, here we are, and so, you mentioned your stepmom. And so I just had a little, my own little epiphany here, because 35 years ago today, my mother went to be with the Lord. She passed, and I was grateful. I will always be grateful and thankful that my sister and I were there with her as she transitioned to be with the Lord. And so life is fleeting, but it goes, we raise our children. All three of my children are adults now, and they have children, and I have grandchildren, and I'm a grandma, and life goes on. And then there's times where it's like, oh, come on, let's get this child potty trained, and let's move on here. So it's an interesting duality, how life seems like it's just inching by and then it speeds by. But in this moment, I just caught myself and realized, and thank you for helping me to just be present to it right now, Dani. And for those of you who are here today, that, we just need to cherish each and every moment and be grateful for who we are and the journey that we're on and the opportunity to make a difference in the world, and to support one another. I don't know, I'm just waxing eloquent here in terms of but I'm just feeling just at this moment, just a sense of grounding. And I appreciate the sharing that you've done today, Dani, that sets the tone for us each individually to be grateful and thankful for who we are, for the journey that we've been on, and to again embrace ourselves in our journey. So thank you for that.
Thank you for this.
Anybody else want to share anything that's come to mind in this conversation to kind of bring it to a close for yourself as well?
Well, I'll say something. I'm always sticking my neck out. So,
We appreciate you, Chuck. You're awesome.
Thanks. But Dani, what I really appreciate about this is how you allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I think that's really important. And that's really being authentic, I think, and being transparent. And not everybody does that. And I think that shows a lot of character on your part. And I really appreciate it. That's something I value a lot in people. And it's hard to find. And especially because I'm a man. And men don't do that usually. So it's really good that you allowed yourself to speak out and give us a little bit of in-depth about you, who you are. I appreciate it very much.
Chuck, I respect you very much. So it means a lot you'd say that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's a beautiful word, Chuck. Thank you for sharing that, because part of authenticity is being vulnerable. That's a key part. So thank you for contributing to the conversation and sharing that. So we have just a few more minutes. If anybody else has anything they want to share, just to kind of bring it home here. And if not, I just want to thank Dani so much for coming on and being part of our conversation to connect. Giving our community an opportunity to get to know you a little better, for sharing your heart, and as Chuck mentioned, being vulnerable and authentic. It's really been a blessing to have this conversation with you, and to encourage those who are on the call today, as well as those who are listening to the replay, to really embrace and accept and honor, celebrate your entire self, our whole self, warts and all. And to be able to remember that everything and anything that we've been through like we were talking about, comes full circle, and can be, even the hard things, even the hard bits, I say, can be a blessing. And, to those that are in our inner circle and to those we come in contact with. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us today for our conversation to connect. Let's Get Real Talk. We meet the first Wednesday of the month, and I nominate a different member of our community. And on the third Wednesdays, we usually have the spotlight speaker from our events join us. We do meet on the second Tuesday of the month, and we're going to continue meeting virtually May 10th. Elise Enriquez is our upcoming spotlight speaker. And she's going to be talking about productivity, which is so important as we're transitioning right now. So invite you to join us. You can go to exceptionalconnections.com to still take advantage of the early bird rate. And then in June, we have Ann Bennett, and she's going to be joining us from California. And she's quite the rebel, but she's going to be talking to us about how to be our authentic selves as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to remind everybody to, take every moment to be an exceptional connector, make a difference with the people in your life. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks you all for coming.
Thank you.